Hello and welcome to another video on art appreciation. So this subject has been offered by Commission on Higher Education or CHED here in the Philippines for college students, and this is part of the general education curriculum. Now, a common concern among students is on the interpretation of an artwork. So they often ask, is there such thing as a correct interpretation? Now we are going to learn that today as we are going to tackle the essay written by Guillermo, who is an authority in terms of art criticism. The title of that essay is Reading the Image, where she tells us the 4 planes of analysis, but we are going to deal with that later on. Now, unlike the study of literature wherein as early as our childhood days in our elementary or grade school wherein we could already tackle short poems or analyze easy short stories and fables or narratives, but with painting or sculptures, perhaps our training may be insufficient because in our childhood days we were just having our watercolor or sketching, basic drawing, shapes. But as to the analysis, that is now the task of college students. That is the challenge for you. So fortunately, we have this essay written by Guillermo, and she gives us concrete guidelines on how to interpret an artwork. Basically, images in general, like they can be from advertisements in social media or print ad, as well as paintings. So stay with me as we are going to tackle Reading the Image by Guillermo, and hopefully you can succeed in your art appreciation subject. So we will now begin with our discussion of Reading the Image by Guillermo. I am your facilitator, Carthelyn C. Adajar. Guillermo was a recipient of the Palanca Awards several times. She is a renowned writer, researcher, art critic, and professor. So she shares to us guidelines in analyzing or interpreting images. So they can be paintings, they can be ads in social media, or even from print ads. She begins her essay by telling us that when we approach an artwork, when we analyze it, we have to put it in context and relate it to society as well as history. And we have to know the basic documentary information of an artwork, like the title, because the title can give us a hint on what the artwork is all about. Or sometimes the title can just be a way of naming the subject or naming the painting. Like, for example, Tom Wesselman, he has a series of nude paintings and he titled all of them The Great American Nude. But how to distinguish one from the other? He would just give them numbers. So later on, I'm going to show you one of his paintings. So that's the title. And then we also need to know the date of the work. Why is this so? Sometimes the artist can be influenced with what's going on around him. And it may be based on a historical event, or it can be based on a current event at that time when the painting was made. So we need to know the date of the work. And of course, the name of the artist. So for example, we have here The Fruit Gatherer, and it's done or completed in 1950 and made by Fernando Amorsolo. And we also need to know medium and technique. So here we have the skill of the artist. So if it's a painting, what did he use? Is it watercolor? Is it oil? That's why we can oftentimes read from labels, oil on canvas. But of course, nobody is limiting you. If you have your paper there, like a page in your notebook, and then you only have your pencil or your pen, then you scribble, start sketching. So the medium there is pen or pencil on paper. So as simple as that. And for sculptures, he would use the hammer and then the chisel. And what what is the medium? So it can be wood, it can even be marble. So for example, Michelangelo, he was already very skilled when in terms of stone cutting when he was still a child because he grew up with a stone cutter. So his nanny was married to a stone cutter, and yeah, as early as his childhood days, he could already cut stone. So when he was in his 20s, he already made pieta. So that's medium and technique. Now, when we say dimensions or measurement, so the size of the artwork. So Spolarium or May 3, 1808 by Francisco de Goya can occupy an entire wall in a gallery. Whereas Mona Lisa, it's quite small. It's like poster size. So you see, it's important to know that because if it's a large painting, we can truly appreciate an artist in terms of the making of the details. He's very intricate, but it's not also saying that if the artwork is very small, the artist did not devote time in making it. It doesn't follow. But we need to know how big or how small an artwork is. Then when we talk about provenance, yeah, location of the artwork, where is it now, in what museum or gallery. But when we really talk about provenance, we ask the question, to whom did the artist pass the work after making it? So did he give it to a friend, or was it immediately sold to a certain gallery? Was it first in a private collection until now it's now exhibited in a gallery? So that's provenance. So in this example, I was at the National Museum of the Philippines. So the first painting that you see as you enter is the Spolarium. And you see there the details. Another thing that you see inside the National Museum is a gallery where you see paintings during the Japanese occupation. Like, for example, this one by Diosdado Lorenzo, Rape and Massacre in Ermita. So when I was in that gallery, it's like I was really shocked. And it's like you could feel what the early Filipinos felt or experienced during the time of the Japanese occupation. So this is another one by Dominador Castañeda, Doomed Family. And if you take a look at the medium, it's oil on lawanit. So lawanit is like a plywood, but you have the darker color. Lawanit used to be the walls of like houses in the 70s. So that's what's used by Castañeda in this painting, lawanit. And Alice Guillermo proceeds by telling us that if we have to understand an artwork, we have to do our research, read a lot. So go to the library or surf the net. Why? Because the meaning of an artwork can grow with time as viewing it becomes a process of continual discovery. So, meaning to say, their interpretation in the past may not be the same as what we have now, or we can add to that interpretation based on research. So, for example, we have this creation of Adam by Michelangelo. He completed it in 1512, so we can see it in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. But in 1990, one doctor named Franklin Meshberger wrote his interpretation or analysis, claiming that the background outlining God and the angels resembles the human brain. But you see, prior to 1990, nobody said that. Even the biographer of Michelangelo was Vasari did not write that, okay, the interpretation is that it's the human brain. Nobody said so, but it was only much later in this century. So you see, the meaning of an artwork can grow with time. So interpretation is not absolute. So this is a line. This is a long sentence coming from the essay. So where do we get the meaning of art? So Guillermo says that it's a complex of intellectual, emotional, and sensory significations which the work conveys and to which the viewer responds, bringing in the breadth of his cultural background, artistic exposure and training, and human experience in a dialogic relationship with the artwork. So you see that I wrote in bold letters the key words. Okay, so she's saying that if you have an artwork, it's like a dialogue between you, the viewer, and the artist. So the artist has something to say in his artwork. And for us to interpret or give meaning to it, we bring in many things. Our background, when we have this training in art, what we have learned in the past, we have that in us already, and then we put that as we interpret an artwork. Also, what we feel, something that's in our emotions. You see it there, no? Second line, emotional, what we feel, sensory. And of course, we also bring our background, our culture. So you see, it's a complex thing. That's why we cannot say that there is an absolute interpretation because our interpretations may vary because we have different backgrounds. But is there such thing as uniform interpretation? We will go to that in a while. So what is Alice Guillermo telling us? So we have to remember those key terms. So again, an artwork is a dialogue between the artist and the viewer, and we bring our background as we interpret an artwork. So depending on our education, our training, what we have felt, what we have experienced in the past, we bring them as we analyze an artwork. That's why she says that there is this horizon of meaning. A work may accommodate several meanings. So she then proceeds by telling us about the four planes of analysis: basic semiotic, iconic, contextual, and evaluative. So we'll go through each one. When we say basic semiotic plane or the word semiotic, it's the study of signs. So there are signs, there are symbols incorporated in an artwork. And these symbols carry a certain meaning. Like colors, for example, they bring meanings. Or when you have lines, okay? But then, how do we say, okay, this line means this, okay? Or this horizontal line, this is the meaning. Okay, where do we get these meanings? Okay, so we'll go to that. So we consider the lines and then the colors when we talk about basic semiotic plane. And when we view an artwork and we give our analysis, the images that we see should be interrelated, should be viewed in a highly relational manner and not isolated or compartmentalized. So when we give our interpretation, for example, in this painting done by Angela Pascual, it is titled Bulaklak. Like we see a flower, okay, and below the flower, there are two women holding hands. You have to relate. So if you have a flower, how will the flower relate to the two women holding hands? And what is that red color that you see at the center? Some students will say it's a wine glass. Okay, if it's a wine glass, how will it relate to the flower? How will it relate to the women? That's the reason why Alice Guillermo wrote there. When you analyze, it's not isolated or compartmentalized. So you relate the images to one another. So she mentions two sources of meaning. Where do we get meaning? Okay, so the first one is psychological and physical or sensory experiences which are commonly shared. So because these are commonly shared wherever you are in the world, it is possible that the interpretation can be uniform because all of us experience day and night, pain and pleasure, hot or cold. Okay? So because of that, it's possible that we can have a uniform interpretation as far as basic semiotic plane is concerned. Okay, another example, when we have the painting May 3, 1808 by Francisco de Goya, he made it in 1814, but the actual event took place on May 3, 1808. So the Spanish government commissioned Goya to make a painting out of that happening, that massacre, to remind the Spaniards of the value of patriotism. But the real event happened in the early morning. But Goya used the nighttime as his setting in this painting. Why? Because the nighttime brings in or gives us the connotation of sadness, something that is gloomy, melancholic. So it adds to the theme of the painting. Like, okay, so the next element is line. So according to her, orientations of line derive their meaning from the positions of the body, our bodies. So for example, this painting by Tom Wesselman, Great American Nude number 36. So you have a woman lying on the bed. Because you have this horizontal position, it is closely associated with sleeping and resting. So just like our body, when we go to sleep, it's horizontal position. So that is the meaning that is brought by this type of line. Whereas if you have the vertical line, pataas, huh? You have the meaning strength and stability. So you have the example, the oblation by Guillermo Tolentino. But in this monument of Bonifacio, you can see that you have a mixture of several lines. So for Bonifacio, it is vertical line. And we know that vertical line means strength and stability. But if you take a look at the Katipuneros, look at their lines, it's diagonal. And diagonal line connotes action or movement. So if you recall, himagsikan, makibaka, so the diagonal line there, denoting movement. So the second source of meaning, the socio-cultural conventions of a particular society. Now this time, it can vary because it depends on the society where you are from. So for example, the color yellow. We have heard the song, a folk rock song by Kenny Rogers, Coward of the County. And you have the line there, his mama named him Tommy, but folks just call him Yellow. So yellow in that song is actually cowardice. So Tommy is considered a coward by the people in their place because he does not fight back. He was always recalling what his father told him. Promise me, son, not to do the things I've done. Walk away from trouble if you can. So when Tommy was growing up, he was always reminded of that line coming from his father. So when somebody bullies him or ridicules him, he does not fight back. But one day, when his girlfriend was gang raped, he decided sometimes you have to fight. You gotta fight to be a man. So see, the color yellow there is used to mean cowardice, being a coward. But how come in the Philippines, yellow now means democracy or carries the meaning democracy, freedom? Okay, so actually it's again contextual, okay, cultural, socio-cultural. It has to do with the song Tie a Yellow Ribbon. Okay, so I have another video on that explaining why uh, why the Aquino administration used the yellow color. So you see, it depends on the culture where you are in, the society where you live. So that's the second source of meaning. So the color black, for example, it's for mourning in Western or Western influenced societies. So when we are here in the Philippines, we can either use black or white. So that's cultural. In contrast, no? So when we say black is for mourning, but at the same time, it can also be a symbol of elegance, class, and sophistication. So the first photo there, you have Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, the iconic film, or you have your K idol, Korean idol Lee Min Ho in his black suit, and the late Princess Diana in her little black dress. So you see, black is a symbol also of elegance. So it depends on where and when it is used. So for white, the color of mourning in many Asian societies, similar to us here in the Philippines, we wear white when you have the funeral. But never red, right? Because families will be offended. Why are you wearing red in a funeral or in a wake? So again, it's cultural. So white for weddings, you have baptism, and we also have the white flag to indicate that yeah, we are surrendering. And you have the birds, no, the white birds for say peace. What about red, no? So it's a color of love, no? When we are in love, yeah, we draw the red hearts, but it can also be the color of seduction, but also a color of violence, bloodshed. So yeah, you have the images there from Squid Game, and then below you have the paintings Polarium. Dominant color is red, so showing us bloodshed. So you see, uh, colors carry different meanings, and when you assign a meaning to a color, again, you have to consider the context. So after the basic semiotic plane is the iconic plane. So in the iconic plane, we look at the image itself. So in this painting done by Juan Luna titled Parisian Life, the focus is the woman who is in the foreground. So Juan Luna here employs perspective. So the object or the image that is nearest us has a bigger image compared to those at the back, the three men at the back. So when we talk about iconic plane, you focus on the image itself. So take a look at the woman, the way she sits. Is she sitting comfortably or is she in an awkward position? And ask why. If it's awkward, why? And what about her gaze? Is she looking at us? And what about the men? They seem to be talking about the woman. So that's basically iconic plane. Just take a look at the image and the relationship of the image to us, the viewers. Is the image looking at us? Or is the image looking at another character in a painting? So that's iconic plane. Next is the contextual plane. So according to Alice Guillermo, it's possible that our interpretations are the same for basic semiotic and iconic. But in the contextual and the fourth one, evaluative, here, interpretations can vary because we belong to different societies. So in the contextual plane, you put the work in context. You always see its relationship to society. And here, knowledge of previous literature, mythology, history would be an advantage because you are going to relate the artwork to those things. So a broad knowledge of a society's history and its economic, political, and cultural conditions, past and present, is an advantage because you are going to relate the work to these things. So if you have not read at all, so there will be something that's lacking. So it entails a lot of reading activities. So knowledge of national and world art and literatures, mythologies, philosophies, and different cultures and worldviews. References and allusions to historical figures and events. So for example, we have this painting, Diana Bathing by Francois Boucher. So at that time, artists were somehow forbidden to paint the female nude. But the artists said, we are not painting a female nude or women. We are not painting women. We are painting goddesses. So it was like an excuse for them to paint the female nude. But as the one interpreting the work, if you have no idea who Diana is, so you cannot write anything. You cannot make a criticism or analysis under the contextual plane because you have limited knowledge. So that's the meaning of this, no? When you say contextual plane, previous knowledge of these things would be an advantage. So we know Diana or Artemis, goddess in Roman and Greek mythology. So if you don't know who they are, if you haven't read that before, then you cannot relate to the work. That's what Alice Guillermo is saying. Because the artist can have references and allusions to historical figures and events. Then lastly is the evaluative plane. So as an art critic, find out what is considered as a value in your nation. And is it depicted in the artwork? Or you can even ask, what are the underlying social issues conveyed in the work? Like we have here, Basaan sa San Juan. So it's one of the paintings that won in a contest. And San Juan, okay, San Juan, that's feast of Saint John the Baptist. So if you're a Catholic, yeah, we celebrate that every June. So it's something that is valued in our country. So try to see what is the value that is presented in the work. Or when you take a look at ads, always consider that ads are there, these images are there to promote the product, to sell the product. So what value is being promoted? So you have commercialism, consumerism. So if you see the perfume ad, how does it relate to the legs of the woman and the man who is at the center? So interior framing. So the man is framed by the legs of the woman. So if you are going to interpret that image, how are these three related? Perfume, legs, and the man. So it's somehow suggesting that as a woman, if you're going to use that perfume, you are capable of trapping the man because of your scent. But is it really true? Does it follow? Probably. So that is what you have to see. So your teacher might be giving you paintings to be analyzed, but also ads. And because ads are included in the essay of Alice Guillermo, because this essay is applicable to images. So any image that we can encounter, and we have to apply the 4 planes of analysis. So, in conclusion, Alice Guillermo said that yes, there can be varying interpretations, especially that we have different cultures. We live in different nations, and every nation has a culture, or even a small community, it has a particular culture. So it's possible that there are varying interpretations. Just like for example, when we have this, no, when this was exhibited, no, Politismo by Medeo Cruz. So it was controversial. I think it was early 2000s. So um, when your teacher gives you a painting or an ad to be analyzed, always give your proof. So do not just say, okay, this is the color and this color means that. But the question is why? And what's the function of this line to the entire painting? And how is this image related to the entire painting? And how do we relate this to society? So that's under contextual plane. And what values are presented in the artwork? Those are the 4 planes of analysis emphasized by Alice Guillermo in her essay. And we have to use these 4 planes when we analyze images. So thank you very much for joining me in this video, and I hope you are going to succeed in your art appreciation subject. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please click the subscribe button and also the bell icon so that you are notified in all of the videos that I upload. So thank you very much once again for joining me. I hope you will be successful and you will get a passing grade in your art appreciation class. Bye!